What's going on, guys? We are back with another episode of the Hammer and Chisel Performance Podcast. I'm your host, John Heck. As always, I just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, Troponin Supplements. Keep me decked out. I'm in the sweatshirt today, in my Troponin hoodie right now. It's a little bit chilly here in North Carolina. We got a random little cold spell over here, so rocking with the hoodie. Now, normally this is where I plug the ATP product, big dose of caffeine, nootropic. But we are recording this podcast at 7:20 p.m. my time, so I'm not going to lie and say I'm taking a big stimulant right now. But after this podcast, I'm going to take a dose of Hit the Rack, which is their sleep aid, which has been big for me. I've always dealt with insomnia, so I take a scoop of that about 20 minutes before bed, helps me fall asleep, stay asleep. So guys, check out the Troponin Supplements website. Use my last name, code HECK, for a discount. Best supplements on the market. So anyway, getting into this episode. So I have on here a guest that a lot of you guys are probably familiar with, whether it's through YouTube, through social media, if you're a follower of Strongman. So let me make sure I'm pronouncing this name correctly. I've got the pronunciation written here so I didn't mess this up. Joey Szatmary, is that correct?
There we go. Yes.
All right, we got the man Joey Szatmary on here. So for those of you who don't know Joey, he is huge on YouTube. You can see in the background of his feed right now that 100,000 subscriber plaque on full display, making me very jealous. But he's been a big time content creator, competitive strongman athlete, a background in a myriad of strength sports ranging from Olympic lifting to CrossFit. He's a big jack dude, gym owner. So we're going to have a lot to dive into here. So Joey, appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm super stoked. And I think this will be a really cool podcast where we're going to share a lot of similarities, probably just have some great conversation. And I'm excited to dive into it, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Are you a Zen guy? I'm going to throw one in real quick.
So that's actually funny. Right now, I actually have it's a caffeine pouch or like a nootropic. But yes, I will say that I am a big Zen guy or just nicotine pouch. So I'm trying to use it more as a tool right now than just kind of popping them in, because I was using those things like candy, and I have a history of also just chewing. So I'm trying to moderate as much as I can and use it more for the tool, the performance aid, than just, popping them in left and right like a Tic Tac.
Yeah, unfortunately, right now I'm deep in a diet and I'm just freaking starving and I'm suffering. Yeah. So I'm kind of in that popping them like Tic Tacs mode. And I cut off my caffeine intake around like 5 p.m. and then I rotate to Zans because nicotine has a much smaller half-life than caffeine. But I'm just hungry, and just having the pouch in there, it just takes my mind off it. But like, I took a year off from Zins recently, and I was doing like tons of the 6 milligram pouches daily. And then I took a year off, and then I came back to them, and I was so resensitized to them. Like I popped 1 3 milligram pouch and I'm like bouncing off the walls, and I was like reintroduced to the magic of nicotine. So now I'm like a proponent of like cycling off, resensitizing, use it as a tool. And then of course I get deep into my diet. Now I'm just back to being fully addicted to them. So
yeah, I hear you, bro. I've been there, but now I would say I haven't really felt the nicotine rush in a while. So I'm a little bit jealous of what that feels like.
Oh no, it's incredible. If you take some time off and then you come back to them, you're like, oh my God, this act, like I've been completely numb to it for the last few years, because you finally feel it again. But anyway, Joey, do you mind just giving my audience a quick background on yourself, kind of your little bit of a resume, your career, what you're doing now?
Sure, man. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I grew up, kind of got late into sports, but then I hopped into sports where this is probably, before high school, but I got involved mainly with football, lacrosse, and wrestling. And then as I was getting ready to graduate, I was trying to figure out where I wanted to kind of do the whole college sports thing in my career. I ended up choosing lacrosse, went to Albright College and played a little bit of lacrosse there. And then after that, kind of was trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. My career took a different pathway, I would say. And fitness at that point wasn't what I thought my career was going to be. It was kind of just what I enjoyed doing. But then I kind of went down that rabbit hole Then after that, being an athlete, I'm sure as you know, you're trying to figure out like what's the competitive itch that I need to scratch. So for me at the time, I was actually CrossFit. CrossFit was pretty big. So I started competing in CrossFit. Had a lot of fun with it. I would say was geared more towards the lifting aspect of it and the shorter metcons. If we were running over 400 meters, it was kind of like watching a water buffalo start to drown. So I was like,
Right.
all right, let's figure out what I want to do here. But I was always really enjoying the Olympic weightlifting part of it. So one of the CrossFit coaches, and still to this day, I stay in touch with him. He was like, "Hey, man, I really think you should just explore this avenue." So I started doing Olympic weightlifting and got a proper coach with that. And I did that for a number of years. And then I'd actually hurt my knee. And that was another kind of fork in the road of like, do I want to continue this or do I want to change it up? And it's kind of when I had that epiphany moment of, I can do a lot of weight as a Olympic weightlifter, but I didn't look like I could do a lot of weight. And it's kind of interesting when you look at weightlifters, and it's nothing to discredit them because they're freaks and they're athletes in their own way. But it's like you could see a normal looking guy walking down the street and he could be somebody that clean and jerks 400 some plus pounds, but you wouldn't really know, right? You know what I'm saying?
Dude, Olympic lifters are like, no offense to them, they're some of the most bad-bodied athletes ever. Like I'm sure you're familiar with Ilya Ilyin.
Yeah.
I mean, like you look at some of these guys, and like you said, they just look like average pedestrian dudes.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is like a lot of Olympic lifters don't train upper body a ton.
Right.
So, they don't have the pretty showboy muscles, but they just have that incredible, explosive, fast twitch ability. So you see these like, kind of dad bod dudes come up to the bar and then they clean and jerk 200 kilos like it's nothing. And it's freaking amazing. And then, of course, in the super heavyweights, you got your fatter dudes, your Lasha Talahadzes. I mean, Lasha is my favorite strength athlete ever.
Oh, and I mean, I total freak.
I would die on the hill and say that Lasha is probably the strongest man alive. Mm-hmm. If he were to do strongman, hell, if he were to do anything, I mean, he would dominate. But I mean, you look at him; he's just got the huge belly. And anyway, I digress. Continue with the conversation.
No, it's great because you understand what I'm saying. So, but I was like, dude, I want to look the part. And I started kind of getting back into different style of training where it kind of reminded me of like my high school football days where I was pretty privileged to, in hindsight, have a good strength and conditioning coach. But there was a lot of strongman stuff that we were playing with. And I kind of just had that itch. I was like, I want to get back to like that kind of just gritty training, flipping tires, doing Atlas stones, carrying kegs. And at that time I was starting a gym. So that was the Lion's Den, which was 2016. And I'm kind of one of those guys that just throws himself into the fire. So I just signed up for PA Strongest Man, didn't have any idea really what I was doing and getting myself into. But I started doing my research, and there was, and you may have even known him from YouTube, but there was a guy named Brian Alsrew who was big with like the Strongman YouTube stuff. And he lived in Maryland. So I just hit him up and I was like, yo, like I'm getting into this. I realize you're not that far. Maybe you can teach me some things. And it was kind of like one thing led to another. So from 2016 kind of on, I've been, involved with Strongman. But then I would say outside of that, I'm a high school lacrosse coach. I've been doing that for 5 years now, and high school strength and conditioning coach for a lot of the surrounding high school areas. But yeah, man, I do the whole online fitness thing. I have clients all over the country and, good about the world. So it's just cool, man. It's cool to be able to help people and do, what I'm passionate about. But I'm sure we'll dive into other things, but it's kind of just a relatively short, but maybe a little bit longer background on myself.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned the Brian Alsrew. He was one of my early exposures to Strongman. I watched his YouTube videos religiously, and of course, he's another big YouTuber. Did he help? And we'll get into this in a minute, but did he kind of help you get into YouTube? Was that kind of that collaboration maybe a stepping stone for you going down that route?
Yeah, so I was definitely making YouTube videos before that, and the way that I used YouTube at that point was for me to just track my progress in my journey. I wasn't actually thinking about monetizing and necessarily growing it. It was almost more like an introspective thing with myself.
It was just like
But
your
then
own journal, your own vlog,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, just
Yeah.
kind of like people were, you keep track of everything in your notebook. For me, it was like a modern day photo album, right? Where like I didn't want to be that guy that when he got older or now like having a son, like for me to be like, yeah, I could squat 500 pounds. And then, but everybody's like, nah, that's BS. That's BS. Like, no,
Yeah,
dude,
sure, Dad. Sure you did,
yeah,
Dad.
it's on YouTube, bro. You can watch it. But then, yeah, so hanging out with Brian, at that time, I was kind of known more for Olympic weightlifting. And that was what I would say my audience really liked. And it was kind of weird because I was trying to transition out of that, but yet that's like the content that they wanted. But Brian was like, hey, man, I don't know anything about this Olympic weightlifting stuff. You're more the guy. Do you mind doing tutorial videos for my channel? And I remember I've always, like I said, just been a guy who throws myself into an opportunity, whether it's for the better or worse. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then as soon as I get in my car, I'm like, how the hell am I going to go about making videos for this guy's channel? And I think during that time, the YouTube collaborations, and YouTube was a different platform. But I made these videos for him, and it was like overnight, I had like 10,000 subscribers, and now I have like this audience base. So for me, it was this kind of a crazy moment. And then that's when I started leaning into actually, figuring out YouTube a little bit more, and, taking a little bit more time to actually create and write down and script my videos, just overall increase the quality. But that kind of started the journey. And I would definitely say for those that have been watching YouTube, I was definitely more prevalent in like, I don't even know how to name the era, but there was a core group of us guys, and we were working a lot together, and the videos were different back then. But that was kind of, I would say, between like 2016 to 2020, 2021, was kind of like my stint with YouTube where things were really popping and booming. But it changes, and I'll be doing YouTube till I die, so I'm just here to put out content, and people like it, cool. And if not, that's fine. There's a lot of other stuff out there, but I do genuinely enjoy it. And I think it's cool to be able to look back and reflect on.
What were some of the other names from that era that you were kind of involved with other than Brian? This is like kind of a blast from the past for me.
Yeah, so one of my best friends is Juji Mufu. So I did a
Yeah,
lot of work
of
with
course.
him. Alan Thrall, Omar
Yeah.
Esoff, was like Silent Mike. So it was like I guess, I mean, I've done a lot more work with Dave Tate, but I would say like that's kind of when he was starting to get a little bit bigger, with the YouTube content. But it was kind of like that circle of guys. And what I say it's funny about that time frame is the videos started off with like some sort of skit always. Like, so it was always like a short skit into the actual video.
Yeah.
And I just remember like, I'd fly all over or travel, and people would come, and we would always be like brainstorming, like, okay, like how are we going to start this intro to this video? But that was very much like the premise, and it's definitely changed a lot, but I hold it near and dear to my heart because it's kind of like nostalgia when you think back to those memories. And I think that audience really enjoyed, those little things that we did. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, and like those videos are timeless. Like, I was watching the Alan Thrall Untamed Strength video. Like, just the other day, I pulled up one of his old like bulking diet videos that
Yeah.
he posted years ago. And I mean, everyone you mentioned, the Omar Esofs, the Silent Mike. Did you ever collaborate? And now he kind of came into the YouTube a little bit later, but Martins Lisis.
Yeah. Martins and I have worked together. He's awesome. So I guess for me, it's like I haven't always been like the big guy, but like I've always just kind of been in the background with a lot of people, which is totally like I'm fine with that role, and I love that role because I just developed some really genuine relationships. And for me, if you've watched the channel or my audience is watching this, like I tend to work with the same people, and I continue to do that because that's really where you get to see those relationships build. Like I try not to do really like one-off things, or if it doesn't fit my morals and values, I kind of stay away from it. And I've had those opportunities, but for me, it's like, if I like you and we align, and, we're on the same mission, whether it looks slightly different, but you know what I'm saying? Like, those are the people that I want to continue to work with and create with, because it's like, at this point, it's like, Alan's got kids, I just had my first kid, and you're kind of along the journey with them, not only with the gym stuff, but in life. And that's always meant a lot to me, is to actually create genuine relationships. It's not so much transactional, which can happen a lot, in this space and most any space. But, with fitness, I think it can definitely be a little bit more sometimes.
No, for sure. I mean, that's awesome. And like just having that core group, like there's something about YouTube. It's like you almost get invested with YouTubers, like they're your favorite characters in a TV show. Like I feel like I almost like know all those guys because I'd watch hours and hours of their videos, and like your personality is able to really come through. And I think a guy like you, who you're just humble and genuine, like that personality really strikes a positive note with people. They enjoy you, and they want to watch your stuff. Um, I didn't actually realize you were so involved in that group, and I'm embarrassed. I'm kind of just discovering you here recently. I'm sure I probably saw you in tons of videos, and I was just like, oh, who's that big jack tatted up guy? But we'll get into YouTube more here in a couple minutes, because I do really want to pick your brain more on that kind of how you built your audience and just content creation in general, because that's something I'm very involved in myself. But just rewinding a little bit back into your early athletic career. So you got started in CrossFit, and then you got into Olympic lifting. And, people ask me sometimes, like, what's your opinion on CrossFit? Like CrossFit gets kind of this like bad rap sometimes. And I was like, one thing that CrossFit has really done, I think it's in many ways been sort of like a gateway drug to other strength sports, because it's brought exposure to Olympic lifting. It's brought exposure to strongman. It's brought exposure to just the fitness world in general, right? It's gotten so many people involved in CrossFit, which has just got them involved in gym culture in general. And then CrossFit has components of Olympic lifting. So you have people like you branch off into competitive Olympic lifting. And then there's components of strongman and CrossFit. Like you go to a CrossFit box, and oftentimes there's yokes, there's farmer carries, maybe there's Atlas stones and sandbags and things of that nature. So I think CrossFit has been awesome for just for the fitness industry and strength sports as a whole. So when you transitioned to Olympic weightlifting, how old were you at the time?
That's a good question. I'm getting old enough where it starts to become fuzzy on how how old
How
you
old, how
were in
old are you
terms
now?
of 32.
Okay, so you're one. I'm 31, so we're
Okay.
right around the same age.
Yeah, I would say I think the Olympic weightlifting stuff probably stopped when I was like 23, 24 is kind of really when I got out of competing with it, and I started really diving into strongman and more heavily biased in strength training.
Right. What are some of your or what are your best snatch and clean and jerk in Olympic lifting? Gym
Uh,
or meet?
Yeah, snatch was 345. Clean and jerk was 445.
I know you've really gone the strongman route since you said those numbers in pounds and not kilos. You've
Yes, yes. Well, one of the
no,
best actual weightlifting stories is my first competition. I didn't have a coach, and I tell this story sometimes on podcasts because it still cracks me up to this day. But when I ordered a singlet, and it ended up being too small, so when I put it on, I didn't even put it on like I think it was like the morning of the competition. I threw the singlet on, and my nipples were hanging out of the sides, and I was just like, dude, there's no way I'm getting out there and like wearing this. So I go up to the judges or whoever was running the competition. I was like, hey, I was like, this is my first competition. I was like, is it cool if I maybe wear a t-shirt, underneath? And I could tell they wanted to say no, and they just felt bad, and they were like, yeah, that's fine. And then it got even better because I was just coaching myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd just be in the back, like looking at the plates and grab a barbell, try to do a warm up, guess like how much it was. I'm sitting there on my phone trying to calculate things. And then I went up, and they're like, what do you want your opener to be? And I was like 315. And they're like looking at me. And I was like, yeah, 315. And they're like, I was like, why are you looking at me like that? And they're like, you mean pounds? I was like, yeah, of course. And they're like, okay. And I was like, why are they acting like I'm crazy right now? But I was like, damn, a 315 kg, like clean and jerk, like let's go, let's break some world records.
Yeah, there's a the culture of Olympic lifting. It's a little bit more polished, maybe a little more pretentious. I've
Oh
never
yeah.
been to an Olympic
Oh yeah.
weightlifting meet. When you walk, you walk into a powerlifting meet. It's the heavy metal, it's
Yeah.
the chalk, it's the anadrol, it's the. When you walk into an Olympic weightlifting meet, is it like symphony music playing in the background
Yeah.
and the golf claps and
That was definitely, I think, one of the reasons I got away from it is like I'm definitely more of a hype, rah rah kind of guy. And
yeah,
to like go up there and try to like hit a max lift and it be like dead quiet, and like everybody trying to like almost like golf, right? It's like, nah, dude, like let's get the energy bumping here. Like I need that. And I will say, like, I'm not like talking down on it by any means, but I think in especially weightlifting, I think because it is an Olympic sport, there is this, like hierarchy and kind of like totem Polish, at least for some of the competitions I've been to. It's like you show up, you got to claim this platform. And if you're not one of my athletes, like you need to go find like kick dust. And, so I was kind of like,
right,
man, like, what's up with this? And when I got to Strongman, I'm sure bro, it's like anybody and everybody is trying to help you and they're like throwing like
yeah.
their wrist wraps at you. And I was like, this is such a unique like thing on top of it being in the middle of a random parking lot, maybe outside of like a Walmart, you're just like, what is going on right now? But whatever it is, like I'm into it.
No, I couldn't agree more. Like, yeah, the strongman, the powerlifting, the community, it's such a good community. Like everyone's so cool to each other. Everyone wants to help everyone. But yeah, I can see in like Olympic weightlifting, it's so rooted in history and it's like you said, an official Olympic sport. A little bit more pretentious, but amazing nonetheless. Now, I
For
will
sure.
say, like, with kind of that more quiet, polished atmosphere. If you ever watch like the YouTube training hall videos,
Oh
like if
yeah.
I'm trying to go to sleep and I just need some like ambiance, something to watch to like go to sleep, I'll watch like Olympic weightlifting training hall videos. It's just so
Yeah.
graceful and elegant, and you hear the the sliding of the bumper plates
Hmm.
onto the bar and everything. But speaking of YouTube and Olympic weightlifting, I'm sure you were exposed to like Donnie Schenkel and John North and those guys back in that day.
I'm sure that there are people who probably know my backstory. I have had I battled it out with John North, and that was a pretty awesome story. Maybe more of an off camera story,
Wow.
but those that know. And then the other cool thing, like yeah, John North and Donnie Shank were like my idols, man. Like when you watch those old Cal Strength videos, just threading the needle and just Donnie's monologues. And I had the privilege of going to an Arnold and actually standing next to Donnie Schenkel. And it was hilarious because he was everything that I thought he would have been. Just like this stoic, hardcore, but yet like so focused on watching the technique. And he literally, I went up and I introduced myself and um, he said, like, you want to sit next to me and watch some weightlifting? And
That sounds just like
I was like, hell yeah. So I'm standing next to him, and he's in jeans, boots, I think like a button-up shirt and like a vest, and maybe he had a baseball cap on or something like that. But it was like you're like once again we talk about the guys you would just meet on the street. Like he kind of had that presence. He was still like definitely like a bit built, but you're like, this is freaking Donnie Schenkel, dude. Like, and he was just like, I just sat next to him for like 15, 20 minutes and we just watched weightlifting. And every now and then he'd look at me, make a comment, watch it again. I just remember like it was the most surreal moment for me. Um, but yeah, those guys were absolutely insane. And I still watch some of those videos, like Donnie Schenkel is stronger than you, just
yeah, and
making
just
weight fly around.
the timeless videos, man. Like just the other day, I was watching like a random Donnie Schenkel like hand care video, and then there's like the Donnie Schenkel 200 kilo hang clean and jerk
Yeah.
video, and just absolute classics. For anyone in my audience who's unfamiliar with Donnie Schenkel, he was a major American Olympic weightlifter, and he trained at in Cal. I'm sorry, Cal Strength, correct?
Yes.
With Glenn Penlay and a legendary American Olympic weightlifting coach, and they were huge on YouTube, kind of back in the mid 2000s. So if you haven't seen any of those old Donnie Schenkel YouTube videos, do yourself a favor and go check some of those out. But anyway, okay, so moving a little bit further forward in your career, so you get into Olympic weightlifting, you ultimately transition over to Strongman, and around this time is when you said you were opening your gym.
Yes.
Got it. So talk to me about that a little bit because I got out of football, and when I was pondering, this move out of the team setting and into private sector coaching, my initial thought was I'm going to open a facility, right? I'm going to open my own facility. I'm going to be coaching on the floor, yada, yada. And since then, I've kind of gotten away from that. And I've not opened a facility. I've gone fully into remote coaching. And I'm honored to work with a number of clients all over the world for nutrition coaching and training programming, doing the content creation stuff. So I really ended up going the remote route. But I've always kind of had in the back of my mind, like, what if with a gym and a facility? So getting to pick your brain on this is something I'm curious about. What was it like, gym ownership? Ups, downs, was it a good move? Do you regret doing it? Just, I know it's a big topic. Let's go into it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of what you said, man. It's going to be filled with ups, downs, all arounds. Um, my story's a bit, I wouldn't say unique, but I started off in a garage, right? And we talked about Zach Evanesh before we started the call, where I was a shoot first, aim later kind of guy, where, I got out of college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I basically just started training out of my garage because at that time I was uh, working on pools. Like I was building pools and servicing pools. I had some personal training clients at another gym that was local. And at that time, it was difficult for me to get my training in. So I spent some money and set up the garage. So I had no excuse to get out of my car after a long workday and just hit whatever I could before I had to go into the house. Um, and as I was doing that, I was starting to make all sorts of weird pieces of gym equipment. Like I would have tires and ropes, and I would get different kegs and make my own Atlas stones, and I would do all the workouts outside in the neighborhood. And at first, people looked at me like I was crazy, but by the time I was done, it was pretty cool because I had half the neighborhood working out with me, or the bus would drive by, and all the kids would wave at this point. So at that point, I had to start figuring out like this is kind of not legit. Like I have like 100 waivers that people have filled out, and there's
Right.
kids coming in and out of this garage. I don't know what the hell people are thinking. So I had to make it more legit. So that's when I started looking for spaces, and for a little bit, I was kind of like subleasing at a gym that I was actually working at, doing some classes for them, and I would train my clients kind of in the corner with my whole setup. And then eventually, I found a spot, and we could talk about all sorts of crazy things, but it took me two failed locations, more so because of the structure of the building or permits and lease agreements, until I got my third one, which was the Lion's Den that a lot of people know of, obviously from YouTube or my social relevance at that time. But I was pretty close before I even started that gym to change and go back to my original career path that I was looking to get into. And I remember it was my best friend who had called, and I remember I was like, bro, like I don't know if I'm going to go through with this. Like I've already had to, go through two failed locations and moving all this equipment and getting all these pre-signups for memberships and then having to tell them, like I was just embarrassed, dude. Like it was just a huge kick in the nuts, to be honest. And I remember my best friend, which is why he's the best friend, was like, if you don't start this gym, that is a failure. And I was just like, damn, dude, like he's right. He's like, just even if you open it and you decide it's not what you want to do, like he's like, you need to do this. Like it's about seeing it through. So I'm glad I listened to him. And it was so weird because it was like the next, either maybe the same day or the next day, I got a phone call from the realtor, and he was like, hey man, I got this one last location I want you to check out. And I remember I walked in and I was like, this is it. Like, this is where we're going to do it. So that started the whole gym journey for the next 7 to 8 years. And yeah, man, it was a grind, but it was also so exciting. Like it's that beginning phase where you're just figuring it out and trying to get everything done and wearing a million hats. But at the flip side, it's you're wearing a million hats and you're dealing with lots of people, and there's a lot of unexpected problems and issues. And I think the other big thing is people, from the outside think if you own a gym, you just train all day. And you and I know that's really not how it probably is, right? We're handling a lot of the other business and back end stuff, and wearing the business hat is a huge one when it comes to the gym. And I think ultimately that is what probably became a lot for me, is like just dealing with all the business side of things and the extra stuff, because my passion is just training, right? Like my passion
Right.
is the weight room. My passion is when I have, a group of people in the community, like that's the part I love. Um, and I think the other part became just challenging for me, and it takes a toll on you. So you have to be cut out for it, and you have to have that mindset, or the business side of it too. And if you're trying to make a profitable gym, I would say like it's a different animal than the training hall passion gym, I would say. So I'm sure we can go a lot of ways with it, but I learned a ton. I had some amazing memories with the Lions Den when it was there, and really some of the best experiences and memories, of that chapter of my life. But at the same time, moving forward where I'm at now, like I'm just so much happier as an individual, with where my life is at now. And I have those experiences from the past to kind of shape and mold where I want to go in the future. So I don't really regret it. And it's the cliche, I don't really regret anything because I've learned so much, and it wouldn't get me to where I'm at today. But I definitely think there's a lot that I can take with me in the future of things I want to do. And sorry that I just talked a lot there, but we can go into whatever you want to.
Well, that's why I have you on the podcast, man. The audience wants to hear from you. Um, going into that journey, did you have any background? Like, so I got out of football, and I'm like, man, I've spent the last decade being a student of the game, for coaching, for programming, for nutrition, for the X's and O's. I don't know shit about business. I don't know where to begin when it comes to getting a location and leasing a space and hiring employees and all the legal side of it. Like I would have no idea. Was that all stuff you were just kind of learning on the fly? Did you have any sort of background into it, going into it?
Yeah, so well, there's two things to that. The first one I would say is before I opened up my own space, I was a trainer. I was a family friend, and they were starting a gym from ground up. And I had the opportunity to be a part of that. And I wasn't financially tied to it in terms of like investment or anything. But
Right.
I would say I was kind of like one of the heads of that gym. So it was a really unique experience for me because I got to learn and see so much, from the business and back end side, while also training anybody and everybody, which helped me figure out where I wanted to be kind of in the training realm, whether, I was doing like all sorts of different kinds of classes. Like at one point I was doing like basically like a kickboxing class, like I'm mic'd up and I'm running around and doing it. And I was like, obviously it's not what I wanted to do, but I had to try it to figure out, right? And I dealt with elderly clients. I had young little like toddlers and everything in between. So I think that was pivotal in me figuring out, where I fit in the space. Um, and then I would say the other thing is during that time you had guys like Zach Evanesh or Elliot Holst. There's a throwback for you, where they were putting out these ebooks, and I spent a lot of my money like buying that stuff, because I saw what they were doing. I wanted something similar, and I would just try to invest in myself and learn as much as I could. So I think it kind of helped me in a sense to have a jump start, but at the same time, there were so many things I didn't see coming. And I think that's always to a degree how it's going to be. Because if you're trying to wait for everything to be perfect and you to be exactly where you want to be, you're probably going to get started pretty late there. So I would say I was kind of in the middle of like, I had my foot in the door a bit, but then I also got my door smashed on my face many of times.
Guys, thank you for tuning in and supporting the podcast. I just wanted to take a minute to give a shout out over to my guys at Troponin Supplements. So they're the sponsor of the podcast, and in my opinion, they carry the best supplements on the market, and it's not even close. And they're the one company that I've wanted to align myself with. As a nutrition coach working with NFL football players, other professional athletes, strongman competitors, bodybuilders, powerlifters, fitness enthusiasts, endurance athletes. I have to be very particular about any supplement company I endorse. And with Troponin supplements, frankly, it was a no-brainer. These are the products I've been using myself for the last few years before I ever became involved with the company. I know the owner personally, Justin Harris. He is one of the brilliant minds in the bodybuilding industry, and we've talked, and all he has wanted to do is just bring some of the elite top of the line products to the market, and that's what he's done. So these are the products I recommend and endorse to all my athletes, all my clients. I use myself, and I want to pass this along to you guys as well. So I'm going to highlight a couple products here. First and foremost, we've got the ATP. This is a high dose of caffeine paired with a very powerful nootropic. I take this before work. I take this before I podcast. This is going to give you a great boost in mood, in focus, memory enhancement. You're just going to feel like you took the Limitless pill when you use ATP. It's an effervescent tablet. You drop it in your water, it dissolves, tastes great. The next product, Field Rations. This is the premier intra-workout supplement on the market right now. It's a one-stop shop for all your intra-workout needs. It's based in highly branched cyclic dextrin, contains essential amino acids, electrolytes, tastes amazing. I use this within every training session. Then we've got the Suppressor Max. This is awesome for controlling your blood sugar. It's got a high dose of berberine, but then has complementary ingredients that are going to keep the berberine bioavailable and stay in your system longer. This is the best blood sugar product on the market. If you're bulking, if you're eating a ton of food, if you're using a cheat meal, this is a great product for you. And then finally, I love this one. I've always had sleep issues. Hit the Rack. This is one of the best sleep products I've ever tried. I use it about 30 minutes before bed most nights, and this has been the one supplement that has actually helped me fall asleep and stay asleep. And then of course, we got the Troponin T logo bodybuilding jersey and the hat. We've got great apparel on the site. So guys, check out Troponin supplements. You can find the link in the show notes, in the bio, or you can simply just Google Troponin supplements. Use code HECK, capital HECK, at checkout for a discount. Check them out, guys. These are some of the best products on the market.
Right. Okay. So you had a little bit of experience, you two failed locations, then finally the Lion's Den, that was the name of the gym, correct? The Lion's Den hits. What does it look like getting that initial member base? Right. That was always something I'd wonder. I was like, you know what? I've got a pretty big following on social media, but that doesn't mean that there's necessarily like local members that I have access to physically come into my gym. How do you go about getting that initial member base?
Yeah, so I think what did help me was coaching and doing personal training prior to that for, I
Yeah.
want to say it was like 3 or 4 years. So I did have a clientele base and it was close to my hometown. So being an athlete, being involved with the community, kind of all the way up to that point, my name was somewhat known, which definitely helped. Um, and then outside of that, it was just going to be, running events or getting out the community, doing business development and networking as much as I could to try to support other businesses or get in Facebook groups. So there was like so many different tactics. One thing I will say that was pretty interesting for me when it comes to like a marketing standpoint is I did pay a good chunk of money for different types of advertisements or flyers. And I want to say I probably got like 3 or 4 people from doing those. But what did start to bring people in, and this is what was interesting, was people would walk in the door and be like, "Hey, I saw you in an Alan Thrall video, and I saw that it said, Colmar, PA." And I looked it up, and I was like, "Dude, it's like 5 minutes from my house." And that's when like the light bulb kind of went off. Is like, this could help my business. Like this could actually be something that it's basically free advertising that I'm putting out there because it's something I want to do anyway by making these videos. But secondary, it could bring people in, and that's really what started to do a lot of that. Was as the YouTube channel grew, as I started doing more collaborations and even getting myself more involved with competitions, it definitely started to bring people into the gym, which was really cool. And then from there, it's just cultivating the community and culture, which I think we did a really good job of at that gym, almost too good. And this is something else to maybe be a little bit aware of is I think we had such a good culture that people almost wanted it to be a secret, where they didn't want
Yeah.
almost other people to come in. And that was a challenge too, because it's like, hey, you guys, want all this new stuff or new equipment. We got to get more people in here. But then equally, it was almost like we're going to protect, this thing that we have. So it's a very interesting situation. And I remember when I was even in the garage those days, which was a 2-car garage, I trained all these people, obviously over the duration. But when I got this 5,000 or 6,000 square foot gym, they were like, man, we really missed the garage. And I'm like, what? Like this is blowing my mind right now, So it's kind of funny how it's come full circle, because now I have a smaller garage style private gym. And that's where I'm almost like, this is where I want to keep it, because it's enough where like I can have the people I want in there. I've built enough of a name for myself that I can kind of, vet who comes to that gym, and it can stay that private community without getting so big where then I run into those types of issues. So it's been such a wild ride, man. And I'm not saying anything I say is like, right, wrong, or this is the way to do it. It's just like, I have a lot of really interesting anecdotal, I guess, things that have happened along my journey.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think it's a really good point about kind of the community aspect of that gym, and then you develop this culture, and then it's like people they don't want the outsiders coming in because it might taint the culture. Like I'm a member of 2 gyms right now. I go to Spider Strength in downtown Raleigh, which is your grungy, hardcore strongman gym, small location, kind of bare bones equipment. And then I'm a member at a huge O2 Fitness a few minutes from my house. And it's like I go to them for different reasons. The O2, it's got all the equipment, the space, it's got the sauna, it's got the bells and whistles, but I'm going there. I don't know a single person there, right? I'm purely going for the equipment. Whereas Spider, I'm going there for the people. Like I'm going there for the vibes. Like I want to go there if I'm in the mood, like, hey, I just want to be around like-minded people. I want to talk with some of my friends. I want to be in an environment where I feel at home. Like that's where I'm going. And the members there, like who is there matters to me. Like I wouldn't want outsiders coming in and changing that culture. Did you feel like you had to sort of police that culture? Like, were you in position where you're having to, kick people out, where you're having to, almost be sort of like the coach of the team? We're like, as a strength coach, like we're culture setters, like we're accountability. This is the standard here. This is how we operate in this weight room. Were you kind of that in a sense at the Lions Den?
Yeah, 100%. And I remember listening to your podcast. I think it was with Dave Tate, but you were talking about like you have to run the room, right? Like run the gym. And I will say like that is something that's a strong suit, for me. And I think the Lions Den was definitely a reflection of myself. Obviously, I think that it's with a lot of smaller private gyms. But it was my culture. Like I had a huge rules banner right when you walked in. We had this like unwritten funny rule where if somebody put their earphones in, they probably weren't going to last because nobody wore earphones. Like we were like more of a, like whatever music's on is what it is. And we're going to force you to be social with people. Maybe you don't even have to be social, but it's like, if we find that you're the guy like plugging these in and kind of getting away from everybody, like it's probably not the gym for you.
That's funny. That's so true. Like I go to O2 Fitness or Lifetime, AirPods are in. I go to Spider Strength, no AirPods. And if I see someone with AirPods come in, I'm like, oh, this motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So you too good for us. Like at Spider Strength, it's a community aux. If someone's going for a big lift, it's an unspoken rule that they get to commandeer the aux. They get to put their song on. Everyone's going to respect that. But no, it's the music's playing loud in the gym. And if your AirPods are in, you're an outsider. Whereas you go to the big commercial gym, it's like, AirPods on, just in my own little world. Yeah. So that's a good point. And I love going into a gym where you see the rule, like the rules banner. You're in a certain type of location when you see that.
Oh, yeah. It was funny. We used to have these annual like Christmas parties, and this one was like, it was just very special. We had just a great group of people in there, and the gym was at its all-time high. And I remember I did this like toast, and it was very interesting because the gym really was like an island of misfit toys, where it's like you probably never would have had all these people in the room together if it wasn't for this gym, just based on, you know, whether it was what they looked like, their beliefs, or like anything you could imagine. It was so weird and unique how everybody came together. And I remember I was like saying that to the people, and it was like people got like emotional, and it was pretty cool to just kind of speak volumes of like, this is really impactful for these people's lives. And then I made this joke where I was like, and I don't know if this is the same one, but I remember I got fired up. And I was like, we're going to be just like West Side, but nobody's going to die in here. Like everybody was like, like laughing. And that was like always my thing. I was like, this is going to be similar to West Side Barbell, but nobody's going to die. And we're not doing coke in the bathroom.
Right.
But
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was just kind of like you said, just the culture of it. And yeah, I had to be the, I guess, the dad or the police. I've thrown people out, and it's, but it's your baby, and you want to protect it. And you genuinely, any of those people that were in there at that time, if they called me, it was like that typical like Ben Affleck, like whose car we take in line, like I'll show up and we'll do some stuff together if we have to. And that's what made it unique and special. And like I said, forever a special place in my heart for sure.
That is a great reference. The town. We're gonna go hurt some people. Right?
Yeah.
Great movie. One thing that I always thought about with the gym ownership. So one of the reasons I stepped away from football was, my wife was pregnant at the time, and football, it just dominates your life. Just the hours, it's year round, it's the recruiting, it's the traveling, it's just you're at the facility all day, every day. And, I had this opportunity to step away and go into the private sector. And I was like, this is going to open up so much more time. I can set my own schedule. I can be a dad. And I was thinking, if I open a gym, I'm just going to be there all the time. And it's going to be like I'm back in football, because I'm just going to feel this immense pressure to be on site at the gym, setting the culture. I know, like, I'm going to be, if I'm away from the gym, I'm going to be worried about what's going on there. And it's going to just dominate my life the same way that football was. Was your family kind of integrated into the gym, or did you feel like maybe there was a loss of balance in your life because you were so invested in the gym?
Yeah, so the interesting story, I actually met my wife now through the gym, but we started off as best friends. And that was, we've been together for about 5 years, but and we didn't have our baby until 10 months ago.
Okay,
but
so this is a little bit later in life.
yeah, so this is a little bit later, but I will say, like, a lot of my family did go to the gym, which was really cool. But it's almost like it had to happen when it happened, right? Because I didn't really have much responsibilities other than running this gym business. I was there every day, like you said. And it's interesting because once I started getting into coaching high school sports, which was later after a couple years of opening the gym, the culture did shift. But I think a lot of that was because I wasn't there as much, right? So
Right.
to your point, like I did feel those emotions, or just the worry of I'm not there all the time, or you almost feel guilty sometimes because you're like, I know I want to try to do this and I should for me, but I'm not there. Or you're like letting people down. So I think there's definitely a big mental toll that it can take on you if you're somebody that is, I don't want to say a deeper thinker, but you just think about things a lot. Like that definitely was something that was prevalent there. And yeah, the balance, there was no balance. You know what I mean? Like for me, it was,
Right.
and we probably can even talk about it with the Strongman prep. It's like I'm still trying to rewire my brain to not really compare myself to the athlete I once was, because all I did was I was in that gym and I could train all the time and still do work in there, but it's like I'm in a different chapter and my priorities are different. And to me, like being a family man, is more important than whatever strongman title you could give me. And I have to like come to terms and be okay with that. Even though I know it, it's like, it still needs some time to kind of sink in there. So everything, I guess, as cliche as it is, had to happen when it did happen for me to kind of be where I'm at now. And it wouldn't have worked, I think, any other way, essentially.
Right. And God, I feel like we could go down the conversation in the gym for another hour. I do want to get into your strongman, and I do really want to get into
sure.
into YouTube. But just closing on the the gym and the coaching side of things. Now, did you ultimately kind of transition more over to remote coaching?
So the interesting part, and I think this was challenging for me at least, was the online started to grow pretty quickly into opening the gym. So I am not only balancing a brick and mortar gym, I'm now having to deal with the whole back end online stuff.
Mm,
Um, and it's tough because you have to, for me at least, it was kind of, I was trying to do both. And it was like trying to fill a lot of buckets with one glass of water, and it became challenging. So then I had to get better at structuring or periodizing what my focus was going to be, right? And then you add on to competing. And for me personally, if I'm going to compete at a high level, I become selfish, because that's ultimately what I know it takes at that time, right? For me to get to that level. So I have to be okay with maybe the gym's not going to grow as much, or maybe the online is going to take a little bit of a hit. So it just becomes this, almost like your training plan, but it's your life or business periodization of, which months do I want to focus and double down on the brick and mortar or the online or my competitive season, because you can't do it all, right? As much as we would love to try to do it all, and I still try to with even just my training goals, I realize that something's going to take a hit, and there's going to be more focus in one thing than the other. But yeah, I would definitely say that that's very challenging, and for me, they kind of all started to grow at the same time, and that's where ultimately I was like, I like the remote stuff because I had more freedom, more flexibility. If I wanted to start a family or if I wanted to travel, I could do that, not have to worry so much when I wasn't there. Now I did have coaches and I had a lot of help, which was great, but ultimately I think that it's still not as, or I would say the remote is going to be a lot less mental clutter than trying to do both at the same time, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, it was a good way of putting it, periodizing your business year. Like, okay, there's certain months out of the year where, I'm going to invest more in the brick and mortar, the marketing, the growth of the business. There's certain months maybe I'm putting more into the remote side. Then there's my, my strongman prep where I'm really going all in on myself as an athlete. And I mean, look, if you're trying to be great at anything, you can't have balance. Like it is trying to be great at anything is inherently a selfish endeavor, because to be great, you've got to pour everything into it, right? And when I was competing in strongman and really pursuing it at a high level, that was probably the worst version of me that I've ever been in terms of who I was to the outside world, because I was so invested in my own training, my own eating. I couldn't be at a family event without, I'm like looking at the clock. I'm thinking I got to be home recovering. I got to be getting my next meal in, this and that. I mean, you factor in, PEDs, things like there's so many things that go into just pursuing the extremes of competitive strongman. And then just even pursuing the high levels of business. And I'm really fortunate now to have kind of found a good rhythm here with doing the online stuff. And so much of my coaching is nutrition based, where it's something that I feel like is a little bit more suited to the online realm. Whereas like with training, it's tough because you're not in there with them in the gym. You can't coach the technique and effort and those things. But with like remote nutrition coaching, I'm either you follow the diet or you don't. I'm able to evaluate photos and feedback and all those things, and I'm able to work from anywhere, and I'm not worried about the overhead costs and employees and all the headaches of the brick and mortar. So I've really been enjoying the remote side of things, doing the podcast and all this and that. And there's part of me that would love to have that community aspect that you've talked about with the gym. And I won't have that in this situation, and I miss that from football. Just the staff camaraderie, the team, and like hearing you talking about like having the Christmas party with your members and all that, and just establishing the culture. Stuff like that. Where I'm like, God, it would be pretty cool to own a gym. But then at the same time, I hear you bring up just kind of the wearing all the hats and having all the endeavors that you're chasing, and it's tough. And not to mention, you're filming all your content for YouTube, right? Which we
Right.
haven't even gotten into that yet. So let's go into the YouTube side of things. When did I know you said you started off just kind of, more of your own personal vlog type of thing. You weren't really chasing it to gain subscribers, stuff like that. When did things take off for you? I know you said it was, maybe with the Brian Alsruhe video where you got some initial exposure.
Yeah, I think with Brian, for me, it was just like these small little bursts, where like I did stuff with Brian Alsruhe, I did stuff with Alan Thrall and Omar and just some other people, and it was like little by little. Like I've always been like just get the momentum going, right? Like those, I always love stacking small wins, and I still do that to this day. And I think one thing I'll give myself credit for is like I'm not looking for that big win or like because I always equate like high rises, high falls, right? So for me, it was just put a video out, try it, see what works, see what didn't work. If it worked, cool. Let's try to replicate something similar to that. Maybe it was the thumbnail, maybe it was the title, maybe it was the format at the time. There's so many different metrics, right? And I did enjoy that process, and even editing. Like I edited, still to this day, I'll edit my videos. Like I do have a videographer that helps me a good bit now, but for the most part, like I just enjoy the process of things, man. Like I enjoy being like, here's day one and I suck. And then here's, day 365 and there's improvement. Well, what did I do? Right. So I really have always loved the process of things. And with YouTube, that's what it was, just this snowball effect, little by little, the more people I met. And one thing I was a big advocate of doing, and I would recommend it to anybody watching this, is go out and get it. Right. Like I will get in my, like, if you were like, yo, Joey, I would love for you to train. I'd be like, when do you want me there? Do you want me? I'll get in my car. I'll drive there tomorrow. Like I'll make it happen. Right. And I think that's a little bit of a lost art where people want to play the lottery and try to hit big. And I would just recommend like, don't take that route. Like go out there and find it. If you want it, go and get it. That's rare. Like I'm honored when people are like, I'll drive to you, or, hey, like I will pay my way to get to you, or, whatever. Like I've always respected that. So I always continue to try to do that. But yeah, I think there's been like bigger videos that have obviously helped spike it. Like when I was getting into jujitsu, that was a big trendy thing. So those videos popped off of Strongman versus whoever. Like that was a good series thing that worked. And it's weird for whatever reason. And I've talked to some other people that have looked at my analytics. Like I will put out videos that don't do well, and for whatever reason, like 2 or 3 years later, they pop off big. And I don't know if it's like the industry just like wasn't on that trend. Like when I put it out, like even like grip stuff, like I was always doing grip stuff and, messing with that. And it wasn't like I was getting no views on those videos, but then like for whatever reason, last year, like all my grip stuff started popping off. So it's like, for me, you never know what's going to pop off. You never know where the industry is going to go. Everything obviously has trends and themes, and it's cyclical. So it just depends on when that wave is going to hit the video that you're putting out, essentially. But yeah, it's hard to really pinpoint like one specific thing. I think it's just compounding those small wins and looking at the data and, figuring out if this was kind of working, let's kind of push more in that direction. And then still while doing that, like try some other stuff, and still put out stuff for you. That's a big one, right? Like you can get wrapped up in this vicious YouTube algorithm cycle and the views and the subscribers, and you can sell your soul. So it's like at the end of the day, like, is that worth it? So it's like I always did like 2 for them, 1 for me, right? Like maybe 2 videos for them. And then I throw in one that I don't even care how it does. This is something I think is cool and I'm going to enjoy filming this. So that kind of was like a somewhat of a balance where I could stay sane, because if you're just caught up in your subscribers and your view count and that's what you care about, bro, you are going to end up being miserable and going crazy. So like I definitely have had this crazy up and down roller coaster of going in all those different mindsets and ways, where now I feel like I'm way more true to myself than ever currently, because I was able to do that. And I've also seen a lot of people who had these huge highs and huge lows, and what that's done to them. So for me, it's like, I'm just chilling, man. Like, I'm chilling, I'm making videos, I do stuff that I enjoy. And I think I've developed a cool audience that they're just cool people. And if you don't like it, I say it all the time, like, hey, if you don't like it, like, that's cool. Like, you don't have to watch it. There's somebody else out there for you.
Right.
I'll be happier if you like their stuff, and I've kind of been able to grow up with my audience, where I started when I was like 19. So to be able to be making videos for that long, like, there's over 1,000 videos on the channel. It's like, I still see the same names pop up from 10 years ago. So it's kind of rad, like, with that whole kind of culture that's online as well.
Yeah, I think you hit on a couple things there that jump out to me. Number one was kind of talking about your go-getter spirit, right? And that's kind of, like you said, it's kind of a lost thing. I mean, back in the day, you talk to Dave Tate, guys like that, man, people would be willing to drive 2 hours to go, train with a good group. Like every weekend, they might take a long commute to go out and train at a badass gym, or, just having that screw it. Like I'm just gonna seize an opportunity when something presents itself. I'm gonna go grab life by the balls and go do that thing. Like I think that's it's a rare quality, and probably something that's allowed you to have the success that you do. And then the other thing you hit on is sort of I don't know if carefree is the right word, but it's just you're true to yourself, right? And I think that's important when it comes to getting an audience to like you, is like being sincere, being genuine, coming across that way. People connect with that. Whereas I think as soon as you try to like just overthink it, like the perfect analytics, I'm gonna release this video on a Thursday at 5 p.m. with this specific little thumbnail. Like once you get caught into those weeds and you think you can just like you're smart, you figured it all out, that's when everything goes wrong. Whereas if you're just being you, man, you're just kind of flowing with it, you're just putting out content that's genuine, that's real, that's what takes off. Like anytime I've like tried to make like a viral video, it flops. But then it's like the stuff that I was just like thought of on a whim, and I was like, oh, this would be funny to do, or this would be cool to do, and didn't really overthink it. Like those are the things that have hit for me, So I think it's a good point. But I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel right now. Now I don't want to do exactly what we're saying not to do here and get like caught in that process of, oh, it's about the numbers. I want to put out good content. Like I want to put out a good podcast. I want to have good guests on here. I want to put out good information on nutrition. But I've really leaned more into YouTube here recently, and I've learned it's tough to grow a YouTube audience. Like I grew a decently large Instagram audience, but YouTube, it's a little bit slower. For anyone getting started, for me, like what would you pinpoint as maybe some predictors of success with YouTube? Is it consistency? Is it, hey, put a video out every week? Or is it more of a don't put something out unless it's like a good idea type of thing? Is it volume? Is it quality, quantity? What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I'll say the algorithm is always going to change, right? So at one point, it could have been views, then it could have been, watch duration. Um, but I think one thing that is tried and true when it comes to social media is consistency. And I will say, even with my own stuff, like, that's something that I need to work on, is the consistency. And when I am consistent, you're getting rewarded for playing, right? So it's like, the more you show up and play, the social media will reward you for that. Now, once you
Mhm.
drop off, it's going to be like, hey, you're not playing, so we're going to put you on the bench for a little bit, right? And then you have to earn your way back on the team. And I've done that multiple times, right? So I would say, if it's something that you want to do, consistency is going to be key, and you will get rewarded for that, hands down. The second thing I would say is don't get caught up in the subscribers that you have, but develop deep relationships with the subscribers in your audience. I forget what the book's exactly called, but it's like it only takes 100 or it only takes 1,000 or something along those lines. And I read it a long time ago when I was young, or just getting into the gym business. But it was talking about catering deep with, if you have 100 people, like get really good at talking to those 100 people, right? You don't need 100,000. Right. So it's like, even if you see these people with millions of subscribers, well, how many of them are active or engaging, with the channel? How many of them are actually, going and seeking out products or coaching, right? Like it doesn't always reflect dollar signs and success. So I think if you can just get really, really good at the consistency, nurturing your audience, and kind of creating that culture that you want, if you do a good job with that, like you'll actually be set. Because right now, with the attention span being so short, what you'll find is a lot of people are going to watch the videos, but they're not going to subscribe. So, if you're getting caught up in the subscribers or how many subscribers that you have, like that's where I said it become a vicious cycle. But outside of that, it's going to be like trial and error, right? Like putting content out there, seeing what did better, what didn't do better, and then figuring out those reasons why, and then try to replicate that. And if you start to see patterns and trends, those are good. Like follow the patterns and trends. But I would say the caveat of that is, putting it out with what aligns in your morals and values. Like at the end of the day, I'm always going to be a morals and values kind of guy. And you'll know when you're not being true to yourself because it's your gut, right? Your gut's going to just have that feeling or conviction, whatever you want to call it. And yet you should listen to that, right? Because the top is better when there's other people there hanging out with you. So if you kind of sell your soul to it, it's a lonely road and probably an unhappy one, in my opinion, right? You can do whatever you want. Like I've met some absolute sharks that do not care about that kind of stuff. And if they're cool with it and happy with it, awesome. Go play that game. That's fine. But I think there's more to life than just that. So just be weary of that. But then I would say to add one more, this is a big one, is collaborate, right? Like we talked about, like going out and getting it. Reach out to people. It doesn't matter how big or how small their audience is. Like just go out there, do some training or try something different. I think that's huge in just building your channel or your audience. Even to this day, like I think that's still something everybody should do, is connect with others, exchange thoughts, ideas, creativity, right? Like that can alone in itself spark new ideas for you and conversation. And you can grow so much more just from meeting somebody and chatting with them that can influence your channel than anything else. So that's kind of be my pillars. I would say, if I could give advice to anybody, and I think if you do that, I think you'll be in a better place than where you started. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think you hit on one thing that I totally agree with, which is sort of this concept of, it's better to have 100 people who love you than it is to have 10,000 people who like you or who are aware of you, right? If you have this just audience of core people who just totally align with you, resonate with you, like these are people who are going to be lifelong followers of yours. They're going to be customers. They're going to be clients. They're going to be fighting your battles in the comments. They're going to be spreading the word about you, versus you kind of have more of this like superficial audience where it's like, all right, maybe you've got the huge following or whatever because you put out clickbaity type stuff or whatever. These aren't people who are going to go to bat for you. They're not going to be necessarily clients, customers, actual subscribers who engage, anything like that. So I think that's a really good point that applies all over business, not just YouTube. Like, it applies in a number of realms. And I think it's a great point on collaborating. And that's something I like about the podcast, is it allows me to connect with a lot of people all over the industry. Like I've had people on this podcast who I've looked up to for years. And I'm like, man, I was listening to their podcast a decade ago, and here they are on mine. It's super cool. but I'd love to do more in-person collaborating and just get out and train with people. And like, I'd love to collaborate with you. And we've talked about it off the air, maybe getting together in Myrtle Beach, getting a lift and shooting some content. I think that'd be super cool.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just ask you on the consistency note, define consistency for YouTube. 1 video a week, 2 videos a week, a video every day. You know, what does that look like?
Whatever's sustainable for the long term for you, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's one time per week and you can stay true to one time per week, you will get rewarded for that, right? If
Right.
it's 3 times per week, awesome, go for it. What you don't want to see is the ebbs and flow where you post one time per week and then maybe next week you post 2 times per week and then you drop off for 3 weeks, right? So whatever it is, just kind of stick with it and be consistent. And I will say outside of that, like you probably know this, but the big thing with YouTube is going to be title and thumbnail. Like that is the first thing people see. And if they're not already subscribed to you and bought into your content culture community, it is very face value. What do they see? And if you want the jump start on that, like that's where I would say spend some time getting good at. Because if you have a good title and thumbnail to get them in the door, and then you deliver with really good content, man, that's a recipe for success. So that's something like I noticed when I put more time and effort into, I was rewarded for that. And just from talking to a lot of people in the space, and it does make sense, right? It's like, how do you, if you're looking for a coach, right? What's the first thing you look for? Like, do they look the part? What's their resume like? And then it's like the bonus is that they have the knowledge where you're like, damn, like this guy really knows what the hell he's talking about. Like I'm even more invested in this. So it's the same way for me when I look at like a title or a thumbnail. So it's like you can play the game as much as you want, or you got to fine tune like where on that spectrum do you want to play the game. That's for you to figure out. I've played the game in every way you could possibly imagine right now. So that's kind of just me anecdotally kind of just telling you what's happened in my journey. But once again, explore, check it out, test, retest, and by all means, if you have any questions off air or shoot me a text or whatever, I can just, share some little tidbits. But it's definitely, it's cool and it's worth it. And if you're consistent with it, it'll definitely be very lucrative for the business. And then it's just a cool endeavor to try. Like if you're somebody who wants to try something new and just give it a shot, like why not? It's 2025. Like when I was starting, bro, I was like a loser when I would tell my grandpa who's born in 1950 and like a hardcore MFer, like, yeah, I'm doing this YouTube thing. I was like, you didn't say that, bro. But now it's like, if you're not doing it, you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, if you're not relevant on social, if you're a business owner or you have a product to sell, if you're not leveraging social media or YouTube, something like you're falling behind. I mean, that is today's day and age. Like YouTube, podcasts, social media, that is mainstream media now.
Yeah.
Like it is everything. And I mean, if you're a big time YouTuber, I mean, hell, you might as well be like a TV star, right? You might as well be a big time movie actor. I mean, people watch YouTube the same way that they watch their favorite TV show on Netflix. Like I'll get on the couch, I'll throw on YouTube. Like when I'm going to bed, I'm throwing on YouTube, and I've got like my YouTubers. Like I've got like random YouTubers I watch. Like I'm big into like fishing YouTube because fishing is one of my hobbies. And I've got like 3 dudes I follow. And if I were to meet them in person, they would be like, I might as well be meeting Brad Pitt. Right. And it's just some like dude I watch fishing all the time.
Yeah,
but there's just something like I connect with them. I've heard their voice in my ear for so many hours for, night after night after night. It's like I feel like I know them. You know what I mean? So YouTube it's a cool platform, and it's cool, to have developed an audience like you have, which clearly you've got a base that loves you and talking to you. It's easy to see why, because you just come off as a good dude, a genuine dude, humble, sincere, and you've got a lot of experiences, a lot of, a lot to offer. So it's cool what you've done. And God, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I do want to get to the Strongman prep here. Last question on YouTube. Just, did you get to a point where, okay, you start to hit it big and Did you start to feel like a pressure, like, God, I got to come up with more content? Like, did you find yourself constantly feeling like you had to be writing stuff and you come up with an idea, you're scrapping it? Like, did you get into that place?
Yeah, like I said, I've been everywhere. Like I've definitely, I'm no stranger to talking about mental health issues that I've had in the
Yeah.
past, which isn't even, I mean, I would say that's been like a lifelong journey, but with YouTube, that happens where, and maybe you can relate, where it's like you start off with this passion or this hobby and you get into it. Like I've just always been somebody that likes so many things. And I will say like I try to there's a point where I want to get good at them, right? Like I don't just have this hobby that I don't necessarily care how well I do or not. Maybe that is fishing for me because I love fishing. I can go out there and just sit there and cast all day. But it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, like how do I get better at this? And the same
Mhm.
thing happens with YouTube, and then it becomes this vicious cycle where you are constantly feeling the pressure of putting out videos, and then your audience wants certain things and you're trying to battle, like, do I want to do that, do I not want to do that, or am I letting them down? So I've definitely gone through that cycle, and kind of like you had said, and I appreciate the compliment, is like I just have to be okay with me, man. Like I am really just a genuine chill guy who I love to train, and that's something that I'm very passionate about. But at the end of the day, it's like what you see is what you get. Like if we hang out right now, this is how it is, right? Like I always wanted to be somebody you feel like you could go and have a beer with, right? Or a coffee, like whatever it is. And sometimes for me, it becomes difficult because I feel like there's not much that's special about me, because it's like you're just kind of cool, right? So, but it's like trying to realize like that's okay. Like that is the strength, right? Or that like you just being you is all you got to do, and don't try to be something you're not. And then once again, these are so cliche, but here I am, a 32-year-old man saying this stuff. Like it's a lifelong battle that you're going to kind of go through, and it's going to be evolutions of growing and remolding yourself, and just trying to be more self-aware. So yeah, dude, I've definitely felt the pressure like crazy. Like if you want to segue into the strongman thing, like that's something I battle with right now. Like getting back into a sport is like the pressure of coming off from a pretty high ending, of where I left off in strongman to I look at myself and I'm like, dude, when I was 240 pounds, I was stronger than I am now, being 275 pounds. Like maybe I look more jacked now, but it's like you get caught up in these different headspaces, and I just have to tell myself like that's a different chapter, man. Like focus on who you are right now and don't get caught up in the pressure. You're putting that pressure, a lot of it, on yourself, which is the truth. A lot of people like to think it's external and it makes us feel better, where we're like they're putting the pressure. It's like they're probably not. It's like when you're like everybody's staring at this pimple on my face, and I'm like, bro, I did not even know you had a pimple on your face. But in your
Yeah.
mind, you're like everybody's, tweaking over something. So, you know, but yeah, dude, I feel that way, and I just try to do the best I can with it. And at the end of the day, I always ask myself, what do I need to do to put my head on the pillow at night and feel good about it? And that's what I
Right.
do. And if I can keep doing that and stacking that, I feel good.
Understood, man. I mean, words of wisdom. And I've dealt with a lot of the same stuff, just this pressure to try to be the best. And, I've had to come to terms with the end of my own competitive strongman career. Like it was 2020 and I was on the verge of getting a pro card. Man, I was just hitting my stride. I felt so strong, on top of the world. And then I had a severe nerve injury that I have not regained full function in my right leg ever since. And man, there were years of having to come to terms with that. And I've accepted, okay, I'm probably not ever going to be as strong as I was when I was 26 years old. But I'm finding new things to pour myself into, right? My podcast, my business, being a dad, my physique. I've really chased after some of the pretty boy stuff. Now I'm deep in a diet, and I'm
Shredded.
I'm over here feeling insecure. I'm shrinking by the week, and I'm just staring at this mountain of a man on the other end of the screen. For me, you look huge. I mean, I've been staring at this wall of traps and delts here for the last hour.
It's the optical illusion of an oversized, heavy T-shirt.
Yeah. Well,
and you're what are you, 6'7", right?
Yeah, I'm 6'7".
Holy smokes, guys! This guy is a giant.
Yeah, 6'7", and the lightest I've been in years. I weighed in at 288 pounds this morning, which is tiny for me. But I'm final week of this diet. I'm already just mapping out my post-diet cheat meal that I'm just fantasizing about every minute here. But I'll be back up to 330 and beefy here in a few months. But speaking of which, man, let's touch on your strongman, and then I'll let you go. So you look jacked, and I've been just seeing you on social media. You're making a return to strongman. So talk about that. When was the last time you competed? How long has it been? What are you currently prepping for?
Yeah, so I've been competing about 2.5, maybe 3 years. It's been a while. So I tore my bicep, and I recovered. That was about a 9-month recovery, and then I ended up doing a show. I want to say within the year. It wasn't even a year yet after the bicep surgery, and bro, it was literally the last stone on the last event. I felt another pop. This time though, it was better because it was a proximal tear, so it was like just cosmetic, just scar tissue. But talk about like in the moment, you were just like, "There's no way this is happening right now." And then after that, I definitely kind of needed to like reevaluate like just my body and my health. I was getting pretty banged up, and I think that was due to me just taking for granted a lot of the athletic attributes that I had, and I kind of milked them too long without really keeping up with them. So it's kind of like I let the residual athleticism kind of bleed over without doing much with it, and I focused more on my static strength. But then it was like, combination of just getting a little bit older and not putting emphasis on those little things where shit just starts to break down little by little, man, if you don't put an emphasis on it. So that was pretty, eye-opening. And then I would say, as I was doing that, I was trying to figure out, did I want to get back into strongman? At one point, I was like, maybe going to do some Ironmans. Like, I just kind of like shooting big for things and changing it up. And then during that process, it was when I was making a decision to close the gym. So that was kind of like, all right, pause. Like, what do we do with our career right now? Like there were some big decisions that I had to make there. And then shortly after that, I got married, and wife got pregnant, and obviously those are huge life changes. So, I was just immersed in that whole experience, which was absolutely amazing, and, happiest dude ever. But then I was kind of like, all right, I need to knuckle down and train for something. And there were a couple shows that I was going to do, but then I had some big conflicting schedule stuff where like weddings, like I was in weddings and there were big weddings and I couldn't get out of. So I was like, all right, let's find the right show. And then I started talking to Chad Coymore, who's a mutual friend of ours, and we were doing some stuff together. And then, he was like, dude, I want you to get back into strongman. There's the PSL 125 kg class. So it was a good weight class for me, because usually I was a 105 or a 242, depending on the organization. But I kind of was tired of making the 105 cut. I was probably hovering around like 255, 260. And then this 125 weight class, I was like, dude, that's perfect. So there's under 275. So signed up for that. Then I actually leave Thursday morning for Texas, and it's the 125 kg world champion. Or world championship. So you get people from all over, flying in, and it's like the best of the best 125ers going head to head. So, I'm excited because I am sticking to, something like I'm going to show up and I'm going to compete. I will say that the prep is a lot different than preps look like in the past, trying to keep a house together, having a baby, trying to be a good husband, and, have a small private gym that I'm doing. So
you've got the adult prep going on,
bro. bro, it is a real thing. And so it's like, you know, I'm being realistic about how I'm going to do that day. Obviously, you're going to do the best you can. And for me, it's like I'm more excited to just like be with everybody. You know, it
Yeah.
sounds weird, but it's like I had a guy and I put on my Instagram and I was actually watching this guy because he's competing in the competition. And for whatever reason, he like came up on my Instagram feed and I was just like watching his shit. And I was like, dude, this guy's an animal. And then he messaged me and was like, bro, you're the like one of the reasons I got into strongman. Like I'm super pumped to like compete with you. And to me, I was like, that's the coolest freaking thing, man. Like to be out there and just be like, yo, we're gonna clang and bang together. But like I helped this person get into this. Like, you know, it's kind of like the like I don't not that I don't care how I do, but it's just like I don't know, you're just up there and you're like, this is rad. This is rad. Like, so for me, it's just being immersed in that experience. You know, my wife and my son are gonna be there. And to me, that's like I win. I win either way. So it's gonna be fun, man. It's the heaviest show I've ever done. It's gonna be a ball buster. I'm just trying to keep my body from ending up in Snap City. And then I think that'll be like the barometer for me of like, you know, how far do I want to push it? If I'm like, yeah, this is feeling a little weird, you know, I have the wisdom now to be like, I'm good there. I'm good. You
Right.
know, where in the past, like, oh yeah, you know, PR or ER, baby. Like, you know, so
Yeah. No, I think you've got a great perspective and mindset on it now. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about with YouTube, where it's like not just getting so gung ho and just over focused and overthinking it, kind of having more of that go with the flow attitude for it, just more of that like love of the game. Like, hey, I'm
yeah,
just out there clanging and banging with the boys. I'm in the community. I'm doing something I love. You know, I'm walking the walk. I've got that competitive fire lit again. I think that's badass. And I think approaching it with that mentality is probably going to be more rewarding for you because no matter what happens, like you said, you're winning, right? Whereas if it's just everything, if it's PR or ER, like it's either going to end in heartbreak or shit. Even in that scenario, even if you win, you go out there, you have the best performance of your life, you realize it's not that fulfilling. It's like, sweet, you pull that deadlift PR, you're on the top of the podium, and then it's like, now what? It's like, all right, show's over. Great. You hit your PR. Now what? It's not as fulfilling as everyone thinks, man. It's so cliche to say, but it's like it's the journey, not the destination. But if you're going into it like I've got my wife, I've got my kids supporting me, I'm part of the community, I'm just doing what I love. It's like no matter what the actual outcome is, like you're winning. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I'm fired up for you. I think it's gonna be
Yeah.
awesome.
It was funny too, because to your point, and I did a podcast on this years ago. So when I won nationals, so I won the 242 and the 275 class together in 2019. And bro, it was so surreal, right? Like I get up there, I got this sick ass like WWE belt and this trophy or whatever. But I remember I felt so empty, like
Yeah.
so empty. And it was just so bizarre to like feel that. And I don't even know how to explain it. Like I trained so hard. I did everything I could, everything right. And like I said, at that time I could do all those things where now things look different. Um, but and I don't want to sound like cocky or like an a-hole when I say this, but I knew I was going to win. Like I went in and I was like, I put everything into this. Like if I don't win, I'm going to be surprised. And when that happened, like just to your point, like what you said, you were like, now what? Like it almost like it wasn't enough, or like, where do I go from here? You know, and then it's like, well, if I go there, am I going to feel any better than I do right now? So, and it's so true to what you're saying, and that's why I just want to like piggyback off of that because there may be people that you know that resonates with, or people that think that whatever that tangible goal, belt, whatever PR, it's just like, then what, dude? You know, so
Yeah.
it's definitely been the mindset that I've had to adapt. And like for me, it's like I'll do this. I'm a big visualizer. I like to visualize a lot, and sometimes at night I'll visualize like the competition, and I'll be thinking about like, okay, well, what if this lift goes good? Well, what if it goes bad? How am I going to react? But then I started to change, and I was like, envisioning myself like getting hyped for other people, like running and like bringing the best out of the other athletes. Because if I'm going to beat you or you're going to beat me, like beat me at your best, beat me at my best, you know. And it's almost like I got chills, dude. That gets me freaking fired up, right? To like literally like at the end, like go and hug the dude or slap hands. It's like, yeah, we may be testosterone filled, maybe some other things. You know, like dudes that are just like wanting to clash heads. But at the end, it's just like, that was freaking fun, man. Like I had a good time. And it's like that guy who messaged me, you know, to hey, how I inspired him. Like, I want to bring him my best. I want him to be like, yo, Joey Szatmary, like that dude's a competitor, like in whatever the sense of a competitive athlete is, like he was that, you know? So it's like that's, I guess, like where I've had to like reframe myself with where I'm currently at versus in the past. Like I didn't think that way all the time. So it's just, once again, just the evolution. And I feel like you're a kind of guy that can understand and resonate with your background and, you know, being an athlete and, you know, with your strongman stuff and having that injury. It's like, because if you don't, like, you're going to be ruined, man. Like that's so unfulfilling. So yeah, so I'm stoked, man. And I think just even this podcast has got me even more fired up, like being able to talk to somebody that, you know, understands and it gets them fired up. Like, let's go, dude. Let's freaking go.
Hell yeah, man. I can visually see you just getting more fired up right now. I'm ready to run through a brick wall too. It's 8:48 p.m. I just want to go train right now.
Yes, let's go.
What's the date of the competition?
It's August 9th, so this Saturday.
Oh, damn. It's that close. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So I leave Thursday morning for Texas. And yeah, we kick it off Saturday. So we're getting after it, bro.
Okay, cool. Well, by the time this podcast comes out, obviously the competition will have come and gone, but I'll get this released here in the next few weeks, so it's still kind of close to the competition time. But man, I'm going to be rooting for you. I mean, you look jacked. It looks like training has been going well, and look, like the sport benefits from having guys like you in it, right? Just good dudes who build the community. But then also you're getting eyes on it, right? You've got the YouTube channel, you've got the following. So I love seeing good dudes like you getting exposure to the sport, you know, bringing a good culture to the community. So I'm wishing you nothing but the best in this competition. No matter what happens, just go out there, do your thing, ball out, do it for the love of the game, man. And you're gonna have a blast doing it. But Joey, you've been very generous with your time. We're surpassing the 1.5 hour mark here. So I'm going to let you go. But in the meantime, where can people find you at?
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy. All you got to do is go into any platform and just type SZAT. And usually after that, it just kind of fills in because it's an interesting last name. But it'll be Zat Strength, or just type my name in and everything under the branding just falls under that name. So yeah, check out the YouTube content or social media. I'm more active right now, I'd say, on Instagram, but I've been posting more frequently back on YouTube, just getting in touch with the audience. And then everything else kind of just falls from there. So I just appreciate anybody that listens to this and, you know, wants to check it out. And like I said, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing, but I appreciate it anyway.
Humble brag, just type in the first 4 letters of my name. It'll auto-populate from there. No, guys, go check out his YouTube channel. Check him out on Instagram. He puts out incredible content. And then, of course, we'll all be cheering for you at your upcoming competition. And I'll be looking forward to it. I would love to do a collaboration with you, if not even for the content, just for the opportunity to go out and train with a like-minded guy. I need some more of that in my life. So we'll connect with that off camera here. But Joey, appreciate you coming on, man. And for my audience or Joey's audience, if you're listening to this, you can find me here on YouTube. I encourage you to check out the content. Every Tuesday, I'm dropping an episode of the Hammer and Chisel Performance Podcast here on YouTube and on Spotify. And then every Thursday, I'm releasing another video doing either nutrition philosophy, full days of training, full days of eating, stuff like that. You can find my website, hammerchiselperformance.com, for my coaching services, training programs, ebooks, all that good stuff. But anyway, Joey, appreciate you coming on, man, and best of luck this upcoming weekend.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And guys, if you are listening to this man, you're in good hands. So I only come on podcasts or connect with people that I know are going to be the best suit for the industry. And he's one of them. So I appreciate your time as well, brother, and have me on here. It means a lot.
Yes, sir. We'll talk soon, man. All right, guys. We'll catch you later.